As a builder, what is one thing that you can implement right now into your life and business to have massive results and change the trajectory forever? Today, guys, I want to talk to you about an awesome story. This is actually a conversation I had just yesterday with one of our builders, and I couldn't wait to bring it to you guys and jump on here and record it. So the topic of today really is going to be around why it is so important to have an amazing positive attitude. So yesterday I talked to quite a few builders, and a lot of them are going through challenges like a lot of you will be at the moment. A lot of you went through some big challenges last year, and no doubt they're going to be coming this year as well. It's the nature of the space you guys are in, but also the economy and just the turbulence that everyone's, I guess, experiencing at this time. But what stood out to me with this guy was his amazing positive attitude. And I think because I've been talking to so many other builders yesterday, and so many of them had other things to complain about, or just focusing on the obstacles that are in front of them rather than looking for the opportunities in these. And that's something that we try to instill in all of our guys we work with, is looking at obstacles as opportunities, because that's really what's going to get you ahead, because everyone is facing obstacles. That's the nature of the space you guys are in, and definitely the nature of the market at the moment. And so because everyone is being faced with that, it's actually a great opportunity. Everyone's got it's an even playing field, and so looking for the opportunity is going to really help you get ahead. Now, this guy down in Melbourne, one of our builders, is in the renovation space, and we were just chatting about what's going on and what he has experienced last year, leading up to the end of last year, and then what is in his pipeline for this year. So that's a catch-up we often have with our guys. Now, for him, towards the end of last year, or the Christmas break, he's lost his 2 IC. He's also lost his, let's say, 3rd IC. So his top 2 guys that were really helping him run the show have, for personal reasons, they've moved. They love working with him, but they've moved, and so he's now have to fill those gaps. But at no point in that conversation did he complain about that. He was only happy for them, and just happy for what this year is going to bring. So. And yes, in last year, it was really, really challenging for him. But the one thing that stood out to me, and I think what clipped me when he said, man, at the moment, it's a renovations market. Money is so cheap. And I was like, wow. Like, the only other people I hear talking like that are, your successful, say, developers or businessmen or guys who are really savvy, really switched on. Those are the guys that talk like that. And so I was like, wow, man, he's like, yeah, he builds for that kind of market. So clearly he's hanging around those kind of people. And then we just started going from there. And I was like, man, how do you have such a positive attitude? And the one thing he said, he couldn't really answer and say why, but I do know, as we've discussed further, he's very intentional with who he hangs out with, who he puts around him and who he talks to, and also what he consumes and puts into his head. So that's a big thing I want to encourage you guys out there, is look at what you are consuming. I chatted to a bunch of guys before and after that conversation yesterday, and a lot of them either aren't consuming anything, so they're just grinding all the time, and they're not consuming anything positive. They're not consuming any, mindset, education, or they're not consuming any business development or anything like that. And so I gave them some resources that I know a lot of our builders love and often use, both from us and from all sorts of different resources. But getting back to this guy down in Melbourne, when I asked him, where do you think that attitude came from? As I said, he couldn't quite answer me, but he is very intentional with what he fills his head with and who he hangs out with. And I know you've probably heard that a lot, the average of the 5 guys or the 5 people that you hang around with, but it is so true. And so this guy's very intentional with that. He also says, his focus is on always having a good work ethic and always delivering a top product. And I know a lot of you guys out there will agree with that, and do try to do the same. So that's fantastic. The other big thing that stood out for me was he refuses to complain. So I was really pushing this guy because it stood out to me, why does he have such a great attitude? So another thing that he mentioned was he refuses to complain or bitch about things that he can't really control. So if it's something that he can go and fix, he just goes and fixes it. He goes and works on finding a solution. But if he can't, then he understands that, and he's not going to sit back and complain and focus on the negative or the things that he can't change. He focused on how to move ahead and move past that, which I thought was brilliant. Simple but powerful. Another thing that he said I just found this funny. I quoted him. He said, when you're hearing someone else complain and you think, gee, mate, get a real problem. He said that's often the conversation that he has in his own head, which stops him from complaining. Another big thing, this is massive. So with these delays and everything going on, there is big opportunity in there, but it's going to take some great foresight and great management around working with those. One of the biggest things for him, and this is something that I've heard from plenty of great builders, is managing expectations. So that's of your clients, of your team, and those around you, and those that you are engaging with. Might be other contractors or suppliers, but big time would be the clients that you're working with. So managing expectations, and that comes from both communication and education. So always over communicate. Don't assume that the client knows what you're talking about. You're the expert. They need a lot more information and a lot more explaining and time for it to soak in and to make sense for them. And the other thing is education. So that's a big thing we help a lot of our guys with. There's a lot of educating you can do through video. If you're watching this, you understand that. But a lot of education you can do through video and putting that out there and in front of your market, in front of your audience, in front of your pipeline and your prospects and your clients, before they even walk in the door and talk to you. The power with that is that when they do eventually walk in, they are highly educated, not only on maybe the process or what it's like, but what it's like to work with you and who you are. So the goal there is that when they reach out, they've already made that emotional decision that they want to work with you. And that's a big, big thing that we help our guys achieve. And it's massive hearing that feedback. We're going to be putting out an interview that I did 2 days ago with one of our guys down in Adelaide. And that's one of the biggest things that he saw straight away and has seen, over the last year, is when you put these stories out there, you straight away notice the change in conversation. People are talking to you like they know you, and they're talking to you really like they've already made the decision that they're going to be working with you. It's just, what's the next step? And you're the one who's then just got to get to know them and their desire and what they want to achieve with you. So, sorry, coming back to this guy in Melbourne, the other big takeaway, I asked him, what was his big takeaway from last year? And that is something that I would try and encourage all of you guys to sit down and think, what's the biggest takeaway that you can take away from last year that you experienced or learned that you can then go and implement this year, and therefore not miss opportunity and not really work hard on getting ahead. So for him, the big thing was one that, well, it's kind of an all-encompassing thing. So he had about 5 major handovers in the last 3 months of last year, and so they pushed his team to the absolute max. He said they were really grinding on each other and going at each other's throats, but when they achieved everything at the end, they could really all sit back and pat each other on the back and say, well done. And so what that did for him was show, and all the clients then moved in and no one has anything to complain about, which he was, obviously that's the goal, but it showed him what his team are actually capable of achieving. Not that he wants to, he said, push his team to be achieving at that level, at that sort of volume, but he really wants to, it's good for him to know that that's what his team can achieve going forward, which I thought was a pretty cool takeaway. And then some things sort of flowed from there. Team saw the whole process from start to finish. Yeah, so coming back was, again, what clients expect from us. So that, again, highlighting the importance of that communication and managing expectations. And then he also, a big part of, because he was working with such condensed time and there was so much involved towards the end of last year, his team, he also included his team in a whole lot more of the process, which means his team got to see what it looks like to work on something from start to end. And they weren't just seeing what they were doing, their task on site maybe, or during the admin process or contract process. A lot of the team got to see a lot of the process from start to finish, which means they appreciated a whole lot more of what goes into achieving what that team, or creating the renovations and the transformations for those clients. And a lot of he also included his team in communicating with the client. So really taking responsibility for what they do on site. So if he's got a team member that does task X on site, then that team member takes the client through that finished product on site or while it's under construction, which means that team member then takes on a responsibility and has to answer directly to the client. And they know that if the client picks something out during construction, that they better fix that, because the client's going to be really looking for that when it comes to completion, because that's going to be a little marker in the back of their head, which I thought was amazing. That's a fantastic thing, is really bringing your team in from start to finish, helping your team understand why you do things. You know, a lot of you guys who have managed to get off the tools or in the office, your team, you know, you probably feel, and maybe your team's communicated, you know, they never see you. And they think, what are you doing? Just driving around having coffee with people. But there's a lot of work, obviously, you're doing behind the scenes to make things happen. Include your team in that so they can see that and appreciate that, and understand what it takes to get the business to where it is, and actually then also what's going to be needed to get the business to where you want to take it. And get them on board with that vision as well. That is a big thing we emphasize with all of our clients, is when we help them firstly get clear on where they want to take the company and the business, is include the team in that. Share that vision with them so that they can put their hand up and say, you know what, I want to be a part of that. Where you are going, where the ship is sailing, I want to jump on board. The other big takeaway from yesterday's a statement I'm sure many of you guys have heard before, is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And that's a big attitude that this guy from Melbourne takes on a regular basis. So some amazing takeaway there from that conversation I had with the builder yesterday. Big emphasis there on, and the topic of today is why it is so important to have a fantastic, positive attitude. If you guys have any more questions about that, would like to learn any more, we would love to hit you guys up with some great resources. So comment below or email me or reach out. Would love to have a chat and see how we can help you or what we can provide you with. Or just start a conversation and relationship, even put you in touch with some of our great builders. We're all about collaborating, and we definitely believe in a rising tide lifts all boats. So guys, if you'd also like to know any more about what we do, reach out. But for now, click subscribe so you know when things are coming up, and turn on notifications so you'll be notified as soon as we drop new videos. We've got some great ones coming up, and also give us a thumbs up, guys. Have a great week. See ya.